What's up, everybody? John Eric Pola here with my MMA news, and today our story's a bit different than usual. Normally, we're talking with professional fighters, talking about their upcoming fights, talking about wins, their future, all that type of stuff, and I'm sure you're used to seeing it on this YouTube channel as well. Well, today we have an MMA story, just a bit different, so just bear with us here. We're going to get into the goods of mixed martial arts here in just a second. Today I'm talking to Dr. Richard Roberts, who has an amazing story. So I'm just going to get right into it here with everybody and have him start explaining his background. So let's bring Dr. Roberts in here. And Dr. Roberts, before we start getting into your background, I just got to ask, how's everything going? And I really like that background you have there with all the fishes and everything else.
Thank you. Yes, believe it or not, this tank was just put in a week ago. I'll step aside so you get better. It's 1,000-gallon African cichlid tank. I had a glass tank there for many, many years, and then I decided to replace it, and it was a lesser quality glass, which gives a green tint to the color. So I decided to replace it with an acrylic tank. That was a big mistake. Acrylic gets scratches, it absorbs organic solvents from the air, gets cloudy. So I just replaced it now with a low iron glass tank, and it's gorgeous. But a word of caution: don't put a tank like this on a floor of your house. The glass weight and metal weighs about 2,700 pounds. The water weighs about 9,000 pounds. So this is when I put the fish tank in the first time, it was part of an expansion of the house. And we have 6 steel beams underneath the tank that go to the footers in the basement. So yeah, kids, don't try this at home.
Well, I was going to say, that definitely looks like a project to put in, and it's definitely, I would never be able to do it. I can just tell you that much. I'm going to try to get into anything with fish or anything like that because I wouldn't have a clue to how to even get that started. But I do like it. But Dr. Roberts, let's start getting into your background here a little bit. You're a fellow Pennsylvania guy like myself here. So why don't you just tell everybody a little bit about what it was like growing up and how exactly you started getting involved in the world of pharmaceuticals.
So I grew up in a suburb of Philadelphia called Abington Township. The little town is called Rydell. I was an Eagles fan before I was born, and I still bleed Eagles green. And I also grew up as a totally secular, Jew at that point. I'm now a Orthodox Jew. And I love science. I went to college at University of Pennsylvania. I love science, and I really wanted to be a physicist, or a mathematician. And my father got a hold of me, and he said, "You are nuts." He said, "It's nice that you're doing great in science, but you've got to go to medical school so you can earn a living. Even if you never use it, you'll always have that in your back pocket so you can earn a living." So I listened to my father. By the way, I'm not saying the words my father used. He was more animated than what I'm saying now. But I listened to my father, and I went to medical school. But I also then stayed true to my love of science. I also got a doctorate in biophysics. So I was at Penn, University of Pennsylvania, for 12 years. And my father owned 50% interest in a small generic pharmaceutical company. My whole life, he had owned that. It was a small company, not really very sophisticated, but it put food on the table. When I was young, growing up, you ask, Johnny, what do you want to do when you grow up? I want to be a fireman. Tommy, what do you want to do when you grow up? I want to be a policeman. Richie, what do you want to do? I want to be the president and chief executive officer of United Research Laboratories Incorporated. But things went awry. Things went a little off the plan because of my love of science. So I went that direction. I got my medical degree and my doctorate in biophysics at Penn. And then I went to Harvard, where I trained in internal medicine, did an internship in internal medicine at the Brigham and Women's Hospital of Harvard Medical School. And while I was there in Boston, I actually lived in Brookline, which is the one town over, but the hospital's in Boston. My father called me. He said, Rich, if you want to try your hand in the business, you better come now because you're not going to be around much longer. So I thought about it, and I said, if I am going to eventually go into the business, I'm not going to spend more years training in medicine. And if I'm going to stay in medicine, then I'll just try the business 1 year, and if I don't like it, I'll come back to medicine and I'll stay there. So it's one of my prized possessions is a letter I have director of the House Staff Training Program at Harvard saying, "We're sorry to see you go. If you want to come back anytime. We'll take you back." I have that one framed in my basement. So I went to the company, and they were on the verge of bankruptcy. The company had about $35 million in sales. They were losing about $2 to $3 million a year. They were paying their vendors around 4 to 5 months late. The bank was about to put the company into workout just to sell off everything and close the company. And that's when I joined. That's how I got my start in business. To make a long story short, a long, grueling story, working day and night for 24 years. I took over the operations after 3 months. I told my father and his 50-50 partner's brother that, this place is going to collapse. You have to give me full control of the operation, or I'm just going back to medicine, because it was ridiculous what was going on. I can give you all the details, interesting stories, but maybe it's not for this venue. So they did it. And the first year I was able to get the company back to a small profit. And we had ups and downs throughout the years, some opportunities, some crises, almost hit bankruptcy again a number of years later. Then we got big investors involved. My father and uncle were bought out of the business. And eventually I took the company from $35 million a year in sales to $600 million a year in sales. I transitioned the company from a tiny generic distributor, distributing other generic drugs, making a couple themselves, to a scientifically driven discovery company on drug delivery technologies and new drugs. It took us from a $2 to $3 million a year loss to a $300 million a year profit. And the number of employees went from 125 up to 800, and then including the contract sales force. And finally, in 2012, we were sold for $800 million. And it wasn't all my money, but I got a few dollars here and there. So I'm now retired and trying to figure out what I'll do when I grow up.
Well, I have to ask, when I hear about, all of that, how did you go from being a guy obviously so well versed in science, but then to being a businessman like that? Was there like a business course along the way, or did you kind of just pick this up on the fly and figure, hey, I'm pretty good at doing business?
You're really asking like one of the most critical questions. That's a very astute question, very astute. I had experience organizing many functions. As a medical doctor in a hospital, for each patient, you have different lab tests you're sending in, you have nursing support, you have the X-ray people coming in, you have a cardiology consultant, then you get your lab test results in, you change the medicines. So I was used to handling 1,000 different things, organizing them all together to the one goal of the patient's health. Also, when I worked on my PhD in biophysics, I designed experiments with many, many hundreds of steps. I had many different scientific pieces of equipment going, chemical reactions, and I was shuffling all. So that organizational ability I brought from science and medicine. The other thing I brought, though, is, people say, what's the one key to business, to success in business? Well, there isn't one key, but I can tell you the major thing I've seen that has sunk people, made them fail, is ego. Ego, that if you're not willing to take advice, or you think you know everything, or if you have an idea and it turns out the facts that come in show that that's really not the best idea, well, you're going to defend it because your honor's on the line. No. You have to go where the facts take you. And along the way, any decisions that you're making have to always be tentative. And there's more, because you're always making decisions based on incomplete knowledge in business. And as more information comes in, you're ready to switch course. As a matter of fact, sometimes when we got bigger and we were hiring in executives from the biggest pharmaceutical companies, one of the things I'd make sure to do was when they would be in a meeting that I was in, and I'd be running a meeting, maybe there's 10, 12 people there, vice presidents, maybe a director or two. I would try to find something where I came out with an opinion in front of everybody, and someone else had a different idea, and I said, wait, stop. You're right. I'm wrong. I'm just, forget it. My idea was flawed. You're right the way you're going. These guys that came from these big pharma companies, they almost fall off the chair. What they're used to is politicking, clapping, the management hierarchy, bow to the CEO, and I needed to teach them very early on. No, you have to go where the information takes you. You have to go where the facts take you. And I would not allow anyone to put their being hurt, their honor being hurt, their ego being hurt. I would not allow anyone to put that in the way of making a clear-minded decision.
Well, that's very interesting, and that's really a lesson that could go all throughout life, no matter what you're doing, to not let your ego get into the way. And I guess moving along here too, I know we could talk about the whole business side of things and the pharmaceutical things probably all day. I do want to get into the MMA stuff, but just before I do, one other quick little side note here. You're heavily involved in politics as well, so why don't you just talk a little bit about how you got involved with politics and the Republican Party?
Well, that's also a long story. My first involvement in politics was around the year 2000. And what happened was the FDA local office came in and they did an inspection on our company, and they wrote up what they call observations. If they're real violations, then they give you something called a warning letter, but they didn't. But then they said we get no drug approvals. So you have to. I sent into them. The company sent it to FDA, and I worked on this with many people in the company. Sent in corrective actions, and after 6 months, we heard nothing from FDA. We're not getting drug approvals. They didn't tell us whether the corrective action plan was effective or sufficient or insufficient, but no drug approvals. They come out and after 6 months they do another inspection, more observations, never a warning letter, but no drug approvals. And after 3 cycles of this, it became clear to me that they were just trying to put us out of business. I have some theories, but I can't prove them as to why. Some personal vendetta maybe the lead inspector had against me, maybe because I'm a religious Jew. I'm not guy who goes around saying prejudice, but maybe her lifestyle, she knows would conflict with what I believe in. Maybe she took offense to that. I don't know. I just don't know. So we were going to go out of business. We were being strangled. So I was trying to think about reason. So we're here, the company's here. FDA is above us. Who's above FDA? And that is the senators and the congressmen that control FDA's budget. So I reached out to Senator Arlen Specter. We're a Philadelphia company. We're sold all over the country, but headquarters and manufacturing facilities, research facilities in Philadelphia. He was a renowned United States senator from Pennsylvania, so we are his constituent. And he was chairman of the Senate committee that determines FDA's budget. And I also reached out to Congressman Jim Greenwood, who was congressman of a suburban area of Philadelphia, but where some of our employees come from. And he was chairman of the congressional committee that oversees FDA's budget. And I told them about the situation. FDA is not giving us drug approvals, not taking formal action against us, and just sitting on us. So both of them agreed to write a letter saying, look, we don't know quality, the quality regulations, but this process looks illegitimate to us. Something's wrong. So they sent a letter to FDA, and that was the first time I got involved with them, because I decided to meet with them, tell them about what's going on, about our employees. And by the way, they never asked for a contribution. They just wanted to protect the jobs of people who live and work in their districts. Then FDA came after us with an inspection which actually showed criminal violations, fraud. And I was freaking out. Now remember, there's this huge manufacturing operation underneath me. I don't know what goes on, all throughout the operation. Right? You have machine operators, they report to supervisors, they report to managers, they report to senior managers, to directors, to vice presidents, to me. So I don't know, but I'm freaking out. And my vice presidents are telling me, Rich, what FDA wrote is not true. It's flat out not true. So I dug in literally 14 hours a day working with all the different people in the company, getting data in, getting information, getting documents. And it turned out what FDA wrote the inspection results, they were false. For example, if in a manufacturing facility for pharmaceuticals, if you have work done on your air conditioning system, you need to then, before you manufacture drugs again, you need to check that the HEPA filters are keeping any particles from traveling from one room to another. So the FDA inspection said our air conditioning people came in on this date. They did work. We made no checks on the air conditioning system after that. And yet we went and manufactured and released to the public tens of millions of tablets. Well, this is criminal. We go into the documentation. The invoice from the day shows that the air conditioning people fixed the refrigerator. They didn't touch the air systems. They fixed the refrigerator. So I ended up calling the district director after I'd been working for about 10 days on this day and night. And I said, I'm halfway, Mr. Director, I'm halfway through the process of going through these observations from FDA. And I got to tell you, the half I've looked at so far, we have ample documentary evidence. They're just false. He says, Dr. Roberts, I'm so glad you called me now and not 3 days from now. That means he was getting ready to send federal marshals in to close our company because this lead inspector had it in for us. So he said, when can you get me the response? I said, well, I can send you the response to the first half of questions in 3 days. He says, great, I will wait 3 days. I said, for the second half, it'll take me another 2 weeks. Fine. If I think that what you're saying is valid from what you send for the first half, then I'll wait for the second half. Long story short, first half goes in, second half goes in. With the second half, I sent a letter. In my cover letter, I said, I have not told Senator Specter or Congressman Greenwood about what we found. But if you don't reply to me within 10 working days, then I'm going to have to bring this to the Senator and the Congressman. 5 days, 7 days goes by, we hear nothing. I have my vice president of regulatory affairs calls a manager at the FDA district office, and she says, the one who wants to destroy us, she says, FDA's top priority is to give your company approval. So that's what happened to her, she got promoted to another office. This is how government really works. So what I realized was, it's not I ran our company honestly, truthfully, respecting everybody in every detail of the company. It's not enough to be honest. You also have to have political connections. Otherwise, you'll get devoured by certain regulatory agencies. That's how I first got involved in politics.
X's and O's of politics there and your involvement in it, but for all of our viewers out there that are watching this, they're probably sitting here like, okay, I'm hearing about pharmaceuticals, I'm hearing about politics. What in God's name does any of this have to do with mixed martial arts? Well, as it turns out, we all can see that you're a busy guy, or that you were a busy guy for your whole working career doing all of this. Yet, for the last, I believe you told me before we came out here, 37 years, you've been training mixed martial arts. So, I mean, you could be doing anything in the world. I mean, like, you have it all. You have a great business. You have money. You could be doing anything. Why is it that you're going to the gym every day and that you're still actively training?
So, great question. So first of all, I've only been doing mixed martial arts for 2 years. I've been in martial arts for 37 years. I first started out in Ryukyu Kempo, which is an Okinawan form that also includes pressure point techniques and street self-defense. And I got a 3rd degree brown belt in Ryukyu Kempo. I then went through some different systems, different belts. I eventually got a black belt in Golden Fist martial arts, which is really like an urban combat form of karate. And I've been doing it continuously for 37 years. About 2 years ago, I met George Sullivan, and I was doing CrossFit training in my home. I have a significant martial arts gym in my basement, and I need to keep fit, and it's good. And I enjoy martial arts. I enjoy also knowing how to defend myself. I might say at this point, I could probably defend myself against a small gang, but that's another story. So so I met George Sullivan about 2 years ago. That's when I started training in mixed martial arts. I have to tell you, so I remember most of what I've ever learned in martial arts. I know an enormous amount of karate self-defense techniques. In the 35 years before George, I did not touch what he has contributed to me in the last 2 years in terms of understanding really how to fight. For example, self-defense in karate, you're always, moving out of the, you're always, creating distance. You come in, you'll train. Someone will throw a punch, slow motion, and then you do things, right? And then you get out. Well, that's all great until you first get hit. The first thing that by the way, George not only knows all of the mechanical details of mixed martial arts and fighting, he understands the psychology of it also, which is tremendous. So one of the first things he did with me was he said, we're going to play patty cake. So I'm like, what's this guy about? Like, I don't play patty cake, baker's man, right? No. Hand patty cake is you turtle up like this, and he hits you in the head lightly. Well, he thinks it was lightly. My brain was jarring. But you have to get used to getting hit. That's very different in mixed martial arts than in general karate training. And it's critical because, as you know, some martial arts, some karate forms, they have big ideas of, I got this one strike and I'm going to, no, baloney. Yeah, that one strike works great on a bag or someone who's standing there not moving. People move, people dive, people go back, they change ranges. So I can just tell you, George has absolutely revolutionarily improved my fighting ability.
And I'm going to talk about George more in a moment here because I know you have some good George Sullivan stories. But I got to ask, too, just along the lines, I know we were talking about your business before and talking about politics, all of that. A lot of people say that it's great getting involved with martial arts just because it can help you out in life and it teaches you different things that will carry on through life. Has any point during your amazing career in medicine and in politics, has there ever been a time that you reflected on something that you've learned from martial arts over these years that may have helped you?
I feel like I'm supposed to tell you, yeah, martial arts helped me to do this and that in business. Not really. It helped. I mean, it helped me. It helped me when I was walking through the parking lot at night. That I'm walking and I'm using my peripheral vision. If someone walks by the sidewalk, you make sure my peripheral vision. And with my peripheral vision, I see them continue on the sidewalk. I'm watching between the cars. But in terms of dealing with business situations, no, you don't go around hitting people. The one thing I might say was different is I wasn't living in fear. I wasn't living in physical fear, like an employee might come up and hit me or something like that. Matter of fact, I remember once I was talking to two of our directors. They were younger guys, probably about 35 years old, husky guys, physical guys, and they ran the manufacturing plant. And we're talking, the UFC was new at that point. People think like the UFC or mixed martial arts, like it's always been around. It's really new. And when before the UFC started, martial arts schools were filled with all kinds of false ideas and claims, and I could do this, I could do that. Well, now if you can't get in that ring, if you can't get in that cage and you can't show what you can do, you're just talking a bunch of baloney. You're just a little dog barking from behind the screen. And it's just not real. So so we're talking to these directors and these guys, as we're talking, UFC just come out. One of the guys went like this, yeah, like that. And I immediately went like this. Excuse me, tell me, Alaka. So immediately I lowered my center of gravity and I put a guard. He said, whoa, Dr. Roberts, that was incredible. But in general, I don't really use martial arts in business.
I'm sure there's probably been times with the FDA back in the day, I'm sure that you wanted to use it, but I guess I'm glad that you didn't do it in that situation there. I guess we'll move on to George Sullivan. As everybody knows, a longtime UFC fighter, Like you said, he's been training you for a little while now. Kind of just tell everybody a little bit about George, what he's like as a person, and I know you have a fantastic George Sullivan story to share. So first, tell everybody about George a little bit, and then you could share that story with us as well.
All right. So George and I come from radically different backgrounds, and our lives have gone in very, very different paths or directions. But he's actually become a very close friend of mine. Um, George, we forget the martial arts part. George, as a human being, is completely full of integrity. He's loyal. He's honest. He's stalwart. He's just really a really fundamentally good human being. He cares about people. Sometimes I try to get him to maybe not care so much because he tends to give things away too quickly that he can't afford to. And I'm just coming from somebody who's giving away tens of millions of dollars to charity, but he can't afford, if he can't afford it, he can't do it. So, but his heart just great. He feels for everybody. So he's just really a great person. And there aren't many people in the world that I trust completely, but he's one of them. So that's George as a person.
And now, how about that story? Yeah, that was if you could explain that story. I know you have a fantastic George Sullivan story where you had some people from Congress over your house, and you guys were having a meeting, and you brought George into it. So go ahead and explain that story as well.
Okay, I have a few George Sullivan stories. I'll just have a quick one very quickly. People say, how does a 63-year-old retired physician, scientist, businessman, asthmatic fight with George Sullivan? I said, the answer is simple. I go easy on him. Did that. Okay. George likes that joke, by the way. Make no mistake about it. George would wipe me out. But that's another. Okay. So anyway, Congressman Mike McCall from Texas was chairman of the Homeland Security Committee in Congress. And I had him here in the home. I have other congressmen, senators, presidential candidates, governors come through my house. So this is a luncheon we had for him. And I put on the lead table, the dais table, with Chairman McCall and myself, I put George and the mayor of our town and the police chief. So when I got up to introduce everybody, because we had a crowd of Orthodox Jewish men here, who I invited, about 40 people, I say, first I want to introduce George Sullivan. He's my martial arts trainer. He's been my martial arts trainer for, I don't know, what is it, 6 months, a year at that time. And he's going to be fighting for the welterweight championship in mixed martial arts. The whole room exploded with applause, including from Chairman McCall. Then I said, now I'll introduce Chairman Mike McCall. Chairman McCall, you're chairman of the Homeland Security Committee in Congress. You have the Army, you have the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines. You have the FBI, you have the CIA, the NSA, but we have George Sullivan. And the chairman said, you're probably a lot safer.
I love that story. That's a hilarious story, too. Well, would you ever want to get into doing business with some type of mixed martial arts promotion?
It's so interesting you say that. I've really thought about it, because, I'm how do I say, I'm in a position in life where, the money is not really an issue. And I hate to say that with so many people are suffering right now because of the economic downturn from COVID restrictions. But I've thought about it. Of course, the number one thing is my lawyers and financial advisors are going to want to make sure that I have no liability, if somebody gets hurt. But I thought about it. The truth is, though, I'm very, very busy. I retired, but things didn't slow down for me yet. I can't quite figure out why. Things I'm involved in. So, but it was I had my fish tank. One of the things I thought about, but for now, it's probably not in the cards.
Just be the last thing here then. Obviously, you're big with politics there. Obviously, Joe Biden's coming into office. Do you still plan on being active with the Republican Party over the next few years and try to make some push to get more, a red wave back now that we just had the Democrats have some momentum there picking up the presidency?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely, totally, no question about it. I'm not involved in politics. I guess I was involved in politics back with the senator and congressman in Pennsylvania when I was with the company. But company sold. I have no personal interest. I just want to in politics. I just want to save the country. I'm going to save the integrity and the authenticity and the values of this country that made it so great. And those are clearly the values that are they're actually Christian values, and those Christian values come from Judaism, right? Because Judaism was around for 1,500 years before Christianity ever started. So there's a Jewish values, and those values are the wholesome values that make this country great. And I just see that a lot of the more left radical wings of the Democrat Party are really trashing those values, and I see the Republican Party as preserving and forwarding those values. Under President Trump, those values really made America win at everything. We just got crushed by a pandemic. Who could predict that? But yes, I plan to remain active, ongoing in the Republican Party.
Dr. Roberts, I appreciate the time today. Before you roll out, you want to go ahead and plug your social media, so if people want to, see everything that's going on in your life and keep up to date with things, they'll be able to check you out.
Sure. Thank you for that offer. I have a YouTube channel, which is relatively new. You search as Dr. Dr. Period, Dr. Richard Roberts. And there's no commercials on my videos. There's no place to give me money. I'm there just to try to take different areas, business, life, science, medicine, and just try to take very complex things that I've been involved in, how government really works, and try to bring them down to the concepts, the fundamental concepts, and present that to people. So if you can check me on my YouTube channel, I'd love for people to watch. I do have a Facebook page. I barely use it. I'm not really, I'm busy. I'm really busy. So, but yeah, if you check my YouTube channel out, I'd appreciate it. Thanks for watching. If there are any other videos or topics you'd like me to address, whether it's in medicine or science or business or other areas of life, please just leave it in the comments. I read every comment. I try to reply to everyone, and I really appreciate your watching. Please hit the subscribe button and please come back again. I try to make videos once or twice a week. All the best to you. Bye-bye.